As promised in my Darth Plagueis theory video, I have returned to share my thoughts on the Darth Jar Jar theory. While I will share many details about the Star Wars theory, I will not go as in-depth as I did in the prior video. I will first try to explain the Star Wars theory, and then share my thoughts on the Darth Jar Jar theory. The theory goes as follows. Many believe that Jar Jar was in fact a Sith Lord and the person, or rather alien, behind the rise of Emperor Palpatine. They cite him as a skilled warrior and even having some power in the Force, or great power in the Force potentially. We all remember in the finale of The Phantom Menace, Jar Jar dancing around the battlefield, seemingly accidentally destroying battle droids and even droidicas. In the film, it appears as if Jar Jar is doing this all by accident and by just blind luck. But, stated by Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope, in his experience there is no such thing as luck. People also cite Jar Jar as planting seeds of love in the young Anakin Skywalker about Queen Amidala. Addressing his Force abilities, the first time we encounter Jar Jar, he is seen leaping up to 20 feet in the air and diving into the water, a feat only we have seen Force users accomplish in the past. As his brief time as a senator, Jar Jar Binks also proposed that Palpatine be promoted to Supreme Chancellor of the Republic. The theory states that Jar Jar and Palpatine have met way back, both stemming from the planet Naboo, and that together they learned from the dark side. They both decided to take different paths, Palpatine deciding to conceal himself as a Sith Lord by becoming a senator and putting himself in a high state of power, and Jar Jar masquerading as a fool and later a senator as no one would expect him to be a Sith Lord. There are also variations on the theory that say that Jar Jar Binks is in fact the master of Emperor Palpatine. He is frequently seen standing next to Emperor Palpatine in the prequel films. Many have suggested that Jar Jar Binks is in fact Darth Plagueis, even though Darth Plagueis has been confirmed as a Mun. The last theory I'm going to touch on as far as the details of the Jar Jar theory goes is that we constantly see Jar Jar seemingly manipulating people through mind tricks as we see him moving his hands, at one point even being promoted to a general. Finally, the finale of the theory states, since we have not seen Jar Jar die, that he is in fact Supreme Leader Snoke, and that he was pulling the strings the whole time, and that he was always working for the Emperor or with the Emperor even during the events of the original trilogy. And after the death of the Emperor at the hands of the redeemed Darth Vader, he decided to come back out of the shadows as the new public face of the Empire, now the First Order, in The Force Awakens. The piece of evidence that I find at least the most intriguing about this theory is its comparisons to Master Yoda in the original trilogy. When we first encountered Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back, he wasn't a very serious character at all. In fact, he was quite silly. Initially, tricking Luke Skywalker and the entire audience into thinking he was nothing more than a common alien that wasn't very intelligent at all, let alone one of the greatest Jedi Masters in history. So the comparison, again, George Lucas constantly saying that the prequel trilogy rhymes with the original one, is that Jar Jar Binks presented himself as this fool character when indeed he was ultimately supposed to be revealed as another Sith Lord, resulting in the finale of Attack of the Clones being a duel with the Force between Yoda and Jar Jar Binks after Jar Jar revealed himself. This might have even explained where Yoda got the idea to act like a fool. But due to severe fan backlash, George Lucas supposedly ultimately decided to pull Jar Jar Binks into the background and have him be less of a character, scrapping the original plans and moving on. So now that I've laid it out for you, I'm going to go ahead and share my thoughts on the Darth Jar Jar theory. As a character, I have never liked Jar Jar. I think that he absolutely brings the Star Wars movies down, especially The Phantom Menace, and I'm quite happy that George Lucas pulled him in the background. Even if the reveal of Jar Jar possibly being a Sith Lord in Attack of the Clones might have been cool, it still would have meant that we would have to dealt with him for a whole other movie. I do like the theory, but I have no doubt in my mind that Supreme Leader Snoke is not Jar Jar, and as far as who he is, I hope he's Darth Plagueis, but if he doesn't end up to being Darth Plagueis either, I will be completely fine with that if he's a completely new character. But if he is Jar Jar Binks, I would be not upset, because you can't get upset over something until you actually get to see how good or bad it is, just because of past experiences. You have to wait till something is actually released, and you have to judge it on how it's presented to you, basically, when you get it. So if Jar Jar Binks did turn out to be Supreme Leader Snoke, if it's not over the top, I guess it could work. It's going to be very, very difficult. Jar Jar Binks, his reputation, he never really had a good reputation, but what he did have before, people tolerated him before. Now, I don't think that that's really going to happen. As far as the twist being contained to the prequel trilogy, I think it might have been interesting. Like I said, I wouldn't have liked to have to deal with Jar Jar for a whole other movie, because if you go back and watch Phantom Menace, he is heavily, heavily featured in that film. And I really respect George Lucas for toning it back in Attack of the Clones, which is what he did, and it's really not as bad. And I think after the Phantom Menace, the prequel trilogy really starts to get better. I've said it in my podcast, and I've said it before. I think the Phantom Menace is a not very good film, but I actually think Attack of the Clones and especially Revenge of the Sith get a really bad rap. I really enjoy both of those movies, actually. So those are my thoughts overall. It would have been cool. It's definitely a very, very fascinating theory. I will link more stuff about it in the description down below if you'd like to learn further about it, read more about it. And like I said, fantastic theory. Definitely a good read and something to ponder. But as far as it actually occurring on screen, I'm not so sure about that. Anyway, guys, may the Force be with you. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and have a great day.